Australia says it won't send a patrol to disputed territories in the South China Sea. The country was invited on a joint naval mission by its longtime ally, the United States.
Australia is pragmatic. It would cost the Australians. China is Australia's largest trading partner, and it really is not at all in Australia's interest to get too deeply involved in what really is a superpower to superpower discussion.
The U.S. wants to make sure China doesn't control the shipping lanes and mineral resources in the South China Sea and the East China Sea. So the U.S. needs help from its allies.
Philippine President Benigno Aquino compared China to Nazi Germany in a speech on June 3rd. Speaking before business leaders in Tokyo, Aquino said China's reclamation in disputed waters reminds him of Nazi Germany's activities before World War II. He said the documentaries reveal that Germany might not have continued its occupation of Europe if France or another power had told it to stop. Aquino said, quote, "They tested the waters and they were ready to back down, but unfortunately nobody said stop." The Philippine president has been rallying other Asian leaders to stop appeasing China as it continues to reclaim territory in the South China Sea. This isn't the first time Aquino has likened China to Nazis. In February last year, he told the New York Times, quote, "At what point do you say enough is enough? The world has to say it. Remember that Sudetenland was given to appease Hitler to prevent World War II." For Newsbeat Social, I'm Molly Reel.
The Philippines is, it's a horror story. Back in the 1970s in Asia, Philippines was viewed as the nation to be admired. People in places like Korea especially, which had been so destroyed by the Korean War and so forth. They looked at the Philippines as a model of where they could go. Here was a country developing the first nuclear power plant in the third world. It was a country with big industrial development plans. It was a country with increasingly self-sufficient agriculture under their nationalist leader, Ferdinand Marcos, a truly great nationalist leader. And this was in the middle of the Vietnam War, and there was a lot of stuff going on. He had martial law at several different periods during his reign, dealing with communist insurgencies and stuff, so it gets a little complicated, but by and large it's not that complicated. This was a leader who was turning the Philippines into what it could have been, should have been a long time ago, but it was moving rapidly to put that country in the leadership for the whole third world of how to industrialize and modernize a poor nation. Now, I recently, in one of my trips, went to South Korea, to Seoul. I'd never been to Seoul before. Beautiful city. What's been done with South Korea under Park Chung-hee is truly a miracle. It's phenomenal. But I flew from there into Manila, and I've been to Manila several times, but flying from Seoul into Manila was just heartbreaking. Because you fly in and you see these degenerate mass camps of tin roof shacks along these canals, which are basically just big sewers, packed together with electric wires strung all over the place as their only way of tapping in criminally, tapping into electricity. Just massive poverty, kids running around barefoot in the street trying to sell a flower for a penny. I mean, horrible third world, backward third world conditions. And yet this was the country that just 30 years ago was the promise of the entire third world, right? And we threw Marcos out, we, meaning George Shultz, Paul Wolfowitz, the same neocons we just talked about a minute ago, used the Philippines as one of the first models of regime change and built up what they called a people's revolt. That was no people's revolt at all. It was a direct NGO-style coup run by Washington. And throughout Marcos, the person they put in power to replace Marcos was Cory Aquino, who did exactly what she was told. She shut down the nuclear power plant, which was completely done. It was ready to go. It had never been turned on, but it was ready to be turned on. They shut it down, never produced a watt of electricity, but the Philippines paid every penny on that nuclear plant. All right, so this was destroyed. They shut down their rice of sufficiency program. They shut down the 11 industrial projects, and the country just went to hell. It now has 25-30% poverty, starvation rather, hunger, worse than poverty, much higher than that poverty. They have 25% official hunger in the country. No industry, no investment. It's a hellhole. So this Cory Aquino, her son, an airhead, is now the president. He got elected for no reason other than that he's the son of Cory Aquino. So this guy's president. Obama goes in there. This was in the works for a long time, but it was officially signed while he was there, and said, and I'm using other words, but this is literally what was said. This country is now a colony of the United States. This country is now a colony of the British Empire. Right? We are going to have the right to put our military forces in every single Philippine military base. Army, Marines, Air Force, nuclear subs, aircraft carriers, ships, planes, forces. Every single base on the Philippines is now ours. Now, this is despite the fact that there's a constitutional restraint in the Philippines against any foreign bases on their soil. So they're using this ridiculous subterfuge of saying, well, these are not foreign bases. They're guests of our bases. Of course, they're building their own facilities. They're going to build new ports. They just announced this morning that Subic Bay, you've probably all heard of Subic Bay. It was the big U.S. naval base during the Vietnam War. Subic Bay is now being rebuilt by the U.S., of course, for Philippine and U.S. ships. Well, the Philippines has a navy of about 3 PT boats, you know, so they're building a huge new port facility and buildings for the U.S. aircraft carriers, battleships, submarines, and so forth. This nation was colonized. Anybody who says anything less than that this nation is now a colony of this empire is lying, or they're just fools. But that's the reality. And there's no other purpose for this. It's not to defend the Philippines against Chinese incursions on a couple of rocks out in the South China Sea. Forget it. This is for war. This is for war in China, and they know it.
सुन ले बेटा चीन, तुझसे लेंगे चीन, तुझसे लेंगे चीन अक्साई चीन, तुझसे लेंगे चीन डोकलाम, तुझसे लेंगे चीन तिब्बत। आजकल चाइना इंडिया को आंखें दिखा रहा है। चाइना वो चाइना जो कि 70% जो है माल अपना बेचने के लिए भारत की मार्केट का इस्तेमाल करता है। आजकल वो डोकलाम के जरिए भारत पे कब्जा करना चाहता है। आज वो डोकलाम के जरिए सिक्किम को हड़पना चाहता है। आज वो डोकलाम के जरिए अपनी विस्तारवाद नीतियों से भारत को आंखें दिखा रहा है और हमें डरा और धमका रहा है। लेकिन याद रखना होगा, याद रखना, सुन ले बेटा चीन, तुझे याद रखना होगा, ये 1962 का भारत नहीं है। ये भारत है वर्तमान का, ये भारत है मोदी का, ये भारत है भारत का। और तुझे बता दूं मैं, इस समय इंडिया के पास बहुत सारी मिसाइलें, बहुत सारे वेपन्स हैं जो चाइना ही नहीं, चाइना, श्रीलंका, पाकिस्तान, किसी भी देश के खिलाफ अगर युद्ध होता है तो एक साथ वार करने में सक्षम है। ये चाइना को याद करना होगा। चाइना को याद ला दूं, सुखोई ब्रह्मोस मिसाइल 300, जिसका तो अभी तक चाइना के पास नहीं है, किसी भी मुल्क के पास नहीं है। विश्व के सबसे तेज गति मिसाइल मारक क्षमता इंडिया के पास है, और जो कि अब सुखोई MK-30 में भी लग चुकी है। तो याद रखना होगा, चीन को किसी भी हाल में देश नहीं झुकेगा। डोकलाम भारत का हिस्सा है, भारत का रहेगा। चीन को हटना होगा, चीन को याद रखना होगा कि इंडिया अब सहने वाला नहीं है। इंडिया अब वो देश नहीं रहा जो 1962 में हार गया था। इंडिया विश्व विजेता है, विश्व हराने वाला है। इंडिया की समय हमेशा नहीं रहती है कि जियो और जीने दो, मिल बांट के रहो। लेकिन चाइना जो आंखें दिखा रहा है, उसको समझना पड़ेगा कि अब उसकी ये हेकड़ी चलने वाली नहीं है। उसकी हेकड़ी साउथ एशिया में चलने वाली नहीं है, उसकी हेकड़ी साउथ चाइना सी में चलने वाली नहीं है। और अब मिल गया है इंडिया को सभी का साथ। इंडिया को मिल गया है जापान का साथ, इंडिया को मिल गया है ताइवान का साथ, इंडिया को मिल गया है नेपाल का साथ, भूटान का साथ। इंडिया को याद रखना पड़ेगा, चाइना को भूलना नहीं चाहिए। इंडिया को समस्त विश्व का साथ मिल चुका है। अब इंडिया किसी से झुकने वाला नहीं है। चाइना को भी ये समझना पड़ेगा कि अब वो इंडिया नहीं रहा। दोस्तों, अगर आपको ये हमारा चैनल अच्छा लगा हो, ये धांसू एंटरटेनमेंट आपको अच्छा लगा हो, तो प्लीज इस पे लाइक करिए, शेयर करिए, कमेंट करिए और दोस्तों प्लीज अपनी राय जरूर दीजिए। धन्यवाद।